Hey, this is Casey with Simple Archery. I should be mowing my lawn right now, but I don't want to. Instead, I want to show you the easiest way to tie a nocking point on a recurve bow. Here we go! Now when it comes to nocking points, you do have some options. One is to use metal nocking points like these here. Now these are quick, but they do have some downsides. One is that you actually have to have knock pliers to crimp them onto the bowstring. Another downside is that because they're metal, they can sometimes have a sharp edge, and archers have actually cut their face when they draw back and anchor, if you anchor close to your face. So for me, I actually prefer using serving string to tie on a nocking point. The question is there actually a simple way to tie on a good nocking point? The answer is yes. The method I'm going to show you today has 6 easy steps, and it's used by a lot of competitive recurve archers. And they've spent a lot of time figuring out what is the best, most reliable, and the quickest way to tie on a nocking point. All you're going to need for this is some serving string, a hot glue stick, a lighter, and of course a bow square to measure out where your nocking point should be. So the first thing that you need to do is to check your brace height. This is the distance between the grip and the bowstring, and you can measure it with a tape measure or your bow square. Now what this number is depends on a few factors, but primarily it is the length of the bow that determines this. You'll need to check with your specific manufacturer for their recommended brace height. The next step is to mark your nocking point with your bow square. After you put your bow square on, you'll notice that there's a line that marks level for your rest. And you want to knock up from that. You want to knock high about a ½ inch. That's a good starting point. Now what you can do is mark that point with serving string and just tie it around right there. I find it's easier to get a knock off an arrow and actually just place it where you want the nocking point to go. Once you have your nocking point marked, you want to cut off a foot of your serving string and get the glue stick, and you'll run it over the glue stick several times. For me, it's easiest to actually wrap it around the glue stick and kind of pull through it a few times, and that will get a nice layer of that glue on the string. You can actually feel it on there. The fourth step is to actually tie on your upper nocking point, and this method uses over and under knots. You'll wrap the string around the serving and tie a simple overhand knot and then cinch that down tight. The end of the string will then be on the underside where you'll tie another overhand knot. I realized after shooting this video that my camera angle wasn't great for seeing the knots, so I added this other video just to clarify. And you repeat these over and under knots, making sure you're stacking them tightly against each other. You should tie at least 5 knots on each side, but you can do more if you prefer. Now there are various methods for how this is done, but honestly I feel like most of these overdo it, and it's really unnecessary. The way I'm showing you is the easiest, and it's incredibly reliable, but to do this you need to use the thicker serving string. I use a .025, and that allows me to just do a single loop for each knot and only tie it in one direction. Variation on this, if you have thinner serving string, would be to double loop each knot that you tie. My recommendation is to save yourself the hassle, use thicker serving string, and keep it simple. We'll speed this up a little. I think you get the idea. When you have the nocking point as long as you want it, you can finish with a square knot and cut off both tag ends. Step 5 is to cut off another foot of serving string and run it through the glue again. You can take your knock and place it against the upper nocking point, and you're going to tie your first knot close to the knock, but not too close. This can pinch the knock, and if you pinch it too tightly, when you draw it's going to get even tighter, and it actually interferes with the arrow being released. And so you repeat this process of the over and under knots on the bottom. You'll then finish off your over and under knots with a square knot and cut off the tag ends again. You then want to take a lighter and burn all the tag ends that you've just cut. And of course, take care when doing this not to keep the lighter in one place for too long and not to actually burn your bowstring. Once you melt that glue, it should harden up and it'll give you a nocking point that'll last you a long time. Well, there it is, the simplest way to tie a nocking point on a recurve bow. Check us out at simplearchery.com, where we make archery simple. Thanks for watching.